my lady biker gang that I hang out with. On the left you have my wife, Erica, my older daughter, Elizabeth, my younger daughter, Josephine. They all are drinking beer on a pier in Maine. Yes, that's how we roll in my family. Previous jobs. Before coming back to Vermont where I grew up, I actually practiced law in Washington, D.C. doing government contracts. My focus was federal defense contracts focused on construction, that is FAA, DOD airports, federal timber contracts, also government service contracts with DOD. So for example, I knew we were invading Afghanistan a month before we actually were because they let the contracts out for the government contractors to provide the services for our troops when they're actually on base. Academic organizations, as mentioned, I graduated from the illustrious Champlain Valley Union High School, holla for my Crusaders, Rutgers University, George Washington University Law School in scenic DC, Sodom on the Potomac. I am heavily involved in Rotary International. Specifically, I'm a past president of the Shelburne Rotary Club. I'm a current assistant governor with the district, which encompasses northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and southern Quebec. And in 2019-2020, I will be the district governor for that district, and we'll see where things roll from there. I'm obviously involved in BNI, and as the families Jones will be aware, I'm also a member of the board of the Miss Vermont Scholarship Organization and their current attorney of record, which means I have no responsibilities there whatsoever. Community engagement. I am a featured presenter with Champlain Housing Trust. In fact, next Saturday I'll be doing one of their first-time homebuyer seminars where I educate those folks on what you're looking for when working with an attorney and what an attorney does for you in the scope of a real estate purchase. I also do continuing legal education seminars, basically teaching other attorneys about real estate law for a bunch of other different companies. And I'm also one of the many attorneys who's a sustaining member of the Vermont Food Bank. Our firm joined back in 2010 as a sustaining member and continued to do so. So let me get down to brass tacks. I mentioned before the 5 C's. For those of you familiar with the Department of Defense or the U.S. government and the military, they have what are known as the 3 C's when it comes to military command and strategy. Command, control, communication. They've recently embellished that to C4, which includes computers. That's primarily for the Air Force type folks. But in my case, I prefer the 5 C's, and we're going to go over those individually one by one. And as opposed to boring you with a very dry recitation of legal facts and analysis, I'm instead going to tell you the story of my last 72 hours with one case. So, by way of background, the clients whose names have been changed to protect the innocent, and let's get that on the board, please, are attempting to purchase their first-time home buyers, attempting to purchase their residence here in Chittenden County. They went under contract approximately 60 days ago. They were originally supposed to close on the 29th of November. There was an issue with radon, apparently, in the course of the inspection. They dealt with it, but in the course of that, tempers got a little flared, and the sellers are now feeling very gun-shy. They feel like they've been taken advantage of, that they've been misled, fill in the blank of whatever they're complaining about, but long story short, they don't feel very good about this transaction. My clients, the buyers, feel like they were just protecting their own interests, and that's in fact what I believe they were doing. Which brings me to the first C, command. Command is not me showing up and kicking down doors. It is the fact that I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. I've been practicing law for 16 years, and I've been focused on real estate law for the better part of, let's see, carry the one, roughly 12 years. What it means is when I talk to my colleagues in the community, other real estate attorneys, they understand that I'm not blowing smoke up their rear exhaust manifold when I tell them things. That I'm actually speaking from a position of, yes, this is my understanding of the law, and I believe it to be correct. Yes, this is what the facts demonstrate. Yes, this is our position, and this is how we're going to work with it. It also means that my colleagues know that if I tell them I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to suddenly disappear after the fact when they've relied upon me to convey something that needs to be done in the case of a sale. So with our example, we have the seller's attorney who, their firm is fairly large. They utilize multiple paralegals to run their files, which is to say that you talk to one paralegal, he or she may not know exactly what the other paralegal told me yesterday, or what the other paralegal told me 3 days ago, or what the other attorney told a week ago. Whereas I'm always in command of my client's facts because I'm the only person who touches that file. It's one of the benefits of being a sole practitioner. Let's talk about control, the second C. No, this is not me grabbing people by the throat, but this is, to a certain extent, about managing expectations. It's always known as client control. This is a phrase that many attorneys know of and are fearful of. When you say, I have control of my client, it doesn't mean that they'll do everything you tell them to, but it means that they're willing to listen to you and respect your guidance and your counsel. It means that if you tell them you're being unrealistic and unreasonable, odds are they're willing to work with you there. When you have an attorney say, as the attorney did in this matter for the seller, I don't have client control, it means my clients have gone off the rails, I can't tell them anything and they won't listen to me. Which means no matter how reasonable I or my clients are, as we were in this case, and we'll talk about exactly what transpired in a moment, it means no matter what we do, there's a limit to how far we're going to be going. It's kind of like dealing with a madman in the room with a shotgun who's not willing to listen to reason. He's going to do whatever the heck he or she wants. We see the big picture, which is to say, my client's goal is to buy this property. Let's not nitpick on the minor things. Let's focus on the big picture, manage their expectations, not get trapped in this idea that a petty argument is a reason to walk away from an otherwise successful transaction. Communication, the third C, sending a clear message. This can be being gentle and subtle. It can also mean standing in front of a car, blasting in your eyes, which I've only done twice, and it worked. The judge sided with me. So, in the case of communication, in this particular instance, we had sellers who, number one, said, we need to close on December 2nd, aka today. Guess what? 2 days after they said that, they suddenly found out, oh, we screwed up our scheduling with our movers. We can't move out until December 5th. Well, you, the buyers, my clients, need to change everything. My clients have lined up everything with their lender. They've scheduled their time off from work. They've jumped through all these hoops. And this is where the client control factor came in. When I came back and pointed this all out, the seller's attorney said, I don't have control over my clients. They're willing to walk away from the deal over this. Now, Michelle's jaw just dropped because she's recognizing quite correctly, this is an unreasonable position to take. This is absolutely absurd. Part of the problem was the seller's side wasn't communicating with anybody. The seller's attorney, the seller's paralegal number one, number two, number three, their own realtor were not all communicating well with the seller. Whereas I was emailing and all my calls were with my client and the realtor, so the three of us knew in concert what was our strategy, what was our game plan, what did we need, what did we want. Because sometimes, as Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. Coordination, fourth C. Get into the truck, a variation on the whole get to the chopper routine. That's really what people want at the end of the day. They want to either get to the moving truck to get out of their property, or get the darn truck in so they can move into their new home. And so in this case, I spent the better part of 24 hours phone calling, texting, emailing, doing whatever. We finally renegotiated the closing time, but also allowed my clients to get into the property when they needed to so that they didn't have to reschedule that truck. This is what coordination is. Now the sad part of this is that this is normally something that can happen between the realtors or between the parties and everyone's playing nice and getting along. In this instance, I basically had to take control of the entire situation and tell everyone, here's what we're going to do and here's why we're going to do it. Because the seller's attorney bailed out, paralegal number one bailed out, paralegal number two sort of bailed out, and paralegal number three listened and said yes sir, 3 bags full, which is what I really like. The listing agent dropped out entirely. I CC'd her on these emails, never heard back from her. That's a bit stunning. The buyer's agent thankfully played ball and she recognized that what we were proposing was going to work and we are good to go to close this coming Monday. Which leads me to the fifth C, cooperation. I've named all these different parties, your realtors, your home inspectors, the lender, my office, the other side. To a certain extent, we all play ball on the same field. We all have to get along. We have to work together, and particularly important, we need to work together for the benefit of our mutual client. What the buyer wants, we are going to work to try to get them subject to law, to reason, and to the laws of physics. So at the end of the day, I need to be able to work well with all these folks, and I'm pretty pleased to say I've got a good working relationship with darn near everyone that I've ever dealt with, even if I've had to yell at them on occasion. So, in my last 45 seconds, let's talk about referral partners. These are the gatekeepers I mentioned before. These are the folks who can get me to where I want to go. Realtors, bankers, divorce attorneys, because divorced people often need to sell property or buy new properties. Estate planning attorneys, because when dead people die, go figure, they have homes that they need to liquidate, and estate planning attorneys usually don't want to deal with this. The legal profession has become increasingly specialized over the last 30 years to the extent that we have people specializing only in employer-side employment law, only in real estate, only in commercial real estate. You want someone who focuses on those sort of things. Indirect referral partners, these are folks who can be helpful but may not always be those gatekeepers I mentioned. Property managers, landscapers, contractors, surveyors, financial planners, basically anyone who touches people who touch property. And I'm going to jump ahead for some new things in 2017. Speaking of moving, Effective January 1, 2017, my office is relocating from the scenic Five Corners of Essex Junction, Vermont, to the esteemed address of 181 Falls Road in Shelburne, just off the parade ground in Shelburne, if you're familiar with the Shelburne Village layout. Yay. And point 2, check out the new and improved website that's coming up. Cynthia Jane is actually going to bring it online in approximately a week, I believe. And finally, my call to action, which I'll leave you with here. Please go on my Facebook page, like it, share it, because there's going to be some announcements I'm going to be asking for you folks to share to your greater community. This is a way for you to spread the wealth, if you will. Schedule a one-to-one with me. If you've done business with me, or if you've represented someone who's done business with me, please be so kind as to write a testimonial. Those are very useful and helpful. And finally, introduce me to a carbon-based life form who may be able to utilize my services. I have no time for questions at this point, unless the leadership team would be so kind as to yield the floor, but otherwise, thank you very much.